Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 3, Chapter number 7, titled Further Inquiries by Vidura. Text number 18. Artha bhavam vinischitya pratitasyapi natmana tam chapi yusmacharana sevayaham paranude. Artha bhavam vinischitya pratitasyapi natmana tam chapi yusmacharana sevayaham paranude. Word for word translation. Artha abhavam, without substance. Vinischitya, being ascertained. Pratitasya, of the apparent values. Api, also. Na, never. Atmanaha, of the self. Tam, that. Cha, also. Api, thus. Yusmat, your. Charana, feet. Sevaya, by service. Aham, myself. Paranude, shall be able to give up. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. But, my dear sir, I am obliged to you, because now I can understand that this true manifestation is without substance, although it appears real. I am confident that by serving your feet, it will be possible for me to give up the false idea. Purport. The sufferings of the conditioned soul are superficial and have no intrinsic value, like the cutting off of one's head in a dream. Yet although this statement is theoretically very true, it is very difficult for the common man or the neophyte on the transcendental path to realize practically. However, by serving the feet of great transcendentalists like Maitreya Muni, and by constantly associating with them, one is enabled to give up the false idea that the soul suffers from material pangs. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksul Unitam Yena Tasmei Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone. So, welcome to Srimad Bhagavatam class. So, once again, we're reading from Canto 3, Chapter number 7, titled Further Inquiries by Vidura. Text 18. The purport is small today, so we'll discuss a bit from text 18, and we might go on to the next text also. We might cover text 19 also. So I'll read the translation again for text number 18. But, my dear sir, I am obliged to you, because now I can understand that this true manifestation is without substance, although it appears real. I am confident that by serving your feet, it will be possible for me to give up the false idea. Okay, so this is Vidura speaking to Maitreya Muni. So, as we've been discussing at the start of this chapter, Vidura, he puts forward two questions towards Maitreya Rishi, one in regard to understanding Ishvara Tattva, the Tattva of the Supreme Personal Godhead, and another question in relation to Jiva Tattva, understanding the position of the living entity in this material world. And after Maitreya Rishi, he answers these questions. Now, these are the words being spoken by Vidura, thanking Maitreya Rishi for answering his questions. And Vidura, in today's text, he is saying that I am obliged to you, so he is feeling obliged to Maitreya Rishi for so nicely clearing all of his doubts and answering his questions. So he's feeling that sense of obligation, and he has this feeling of gratefulness towards Maitreya Rishi. And why is he obliged? Because he is saying, I'm obliged to you because now I can understand that this material manifestation is without substance, although it appears real. So Vidura is saying, now because of the words coming from your lotus mouth, because of your preaching to me, I'm getting this realization, or I'm getting this understanding that actually this whole material manifestation, it's false, it's temporary, and in that sense it's false, and it actually has no substance. So therefore, there's no need for us to endeavor so hard in engaging in sense gratification and being attracted by the different various sense objects of this material world. And the example that Maitra Rishi was giving to Vidura earlier on, which Prabhupada quotes in the purport, Prabhupada says that the sufferings of the conditioned soul are superficial and have no intrinsic value, like the cutting off of one's head in a dream. So Maitra Rishi, he was explaining previously to Vidura in one metaphor that how this whole material existence, the pure spiritual soul coming into material world, coming into material existence, is just like a bad dream. So dream in the sense that this isn't actually factual, this isn't a real identity. A real identity is not to be here in this material world, trying to be the enjoyer, trying to be the controller, trying to be the master. No. Real identity is to be the servant of Krishna, to a servant of Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. Jivera Sarupa Hoy, Krishna Eri Nichadas. But because we want to enjoy separate from Krishna, Krishna, he creates this virtual reality, this material manifestation, material universe, where we're put into this dreamlike state. Because in reality, our constitutional position is to be Krishna's servant. So therefore, if we want to act differently to Krishna's servant, if we want to be the controller and the enjoyer, then Krishna has to put us into like a dreamlike state, a virtual reality, an illusory state of consciousness. So that's why this material world is created. And we were discussing how first thing Brahma creates. In Brahma, Vishnu, he does the first initial creation, and then Brahma, he does the secondary creation. And in terms of Brahma's creation, the first thing Brahma creates before creating anything else is the 5 layers of ignorance. Because only when the conditioned soul is covered over by ignorance, only then can he go into this dreamlike state, thinking he's the enjoyer, thinking he's the controller. So we discussed in previous class how Brahma, the 5 layers of ignorance that Brahma initially he creates is tamas, then we have moha, mahamoha, tamishra and under-tamishra. So tamas is the ignorance by which one forgets his original sarupa of being Krishna's servant. Then one is put into moha. So moha is the second layer, by which one thinks that I am this body. Then from moha it becomes mahamoha, even greater illusion. And what's mahamoha? One doesn't just think I am this body, but one starts identifying with different sense objects and other people, that this is my family, this is my nation, this is my community, this is my house, this is my TV, this is my car. In this way one's bodily conception expands from just one's own body to further extended sense gratification. So that becomes mahamoha. Then there is tamishra, which is anger arising due to frustration when one is impeded in his sense gratification. So one is thinking he's the body and one is trying to gratify his senses, but he is impeded in his sense gratification, and then he becomes frustrated, and then anger arises. So that's called tamishra. And then the 5th layer of ignorance is called under-tamishra. And under-tamishra, Prabhupada explains in his purport that under-tamishra is the conception that at death everything is finished. So this is the only lifetime we have, and we have this body. So as long as many years as we live in this world, let us try and fully enjoy our senses to the max capacity. Because at death everything is finished. There's nothing beyond death. So in this way, Brahma, he creates these 5 layers of ignorance by which one is put into this dreamlike, hallucinatory or illusory state of consciousness in this material world. And Vidura today, he is saying that I'm obliged to you because through your words I'm starting to understand how this whole material manifestation is false, is temporary, is just like a dreamlike state, although it appears real. Vidura is saying. And then in the last line of today's translation, Vidura is saying that I am confident that by serving your feet, it will be possible for me to give up the false idea. So in the purport, Prabhupada is explaining that although this statement is theoretically very true. So what's the statement? The statement is that this material manifestation, the sufferings and the pleasures we're going through, it's all temporary, it's all superficial. It's not us, we're not this body, we're not, this identity that we've created, this false ego, it's not us. Our real identity is as Krishna's servant. So theoretically, we've all studied this, we've all heard this many, many times, but Prabhupada is saying that, yet although this statement is theoretically very true, it is very difficult for the common man or the neophyte on the transcendental path to realize practically. So Prabhupada is explaining, it's one thing to theoretically understand something, but it's a completely another thing to practically realize it and to live our lives according to that realization. So yes, theoretically, we all know we're not the body, we're the soul. Theoretically, we all know we're the servants of Krishna, that's a real identity. Theoretically, we know that this material world, this isn't our home. Theoretically, we know that sense gratification is bad, it's just full of suffering and miseries. But do we practically realize this? Do we have this deep realization, conviction that yes, I'm Krishna's servant, yes, I'm not going to engage in sense gratification, yes, 24 hours a day I'm going to engage in service because that's my Swarupa? So there's two things. One is the theoretical understanding, the other one is realized knowledge. And all of us, theoretical understanding we've heard so many classes, we've read so many of Prabhupada's books, so definitely theoretical knowledge we have, but the place where we lack, Prabhupada's explaining, is the practical realization. If we really 100% actually realize these statements of the Shastra, then we would all be pure devotees, we would never engage in sense gratification. 24 hours a day, we would just be fully absorbed in deep meditation of Krishna and engaging in Krishna service. But we see, if we're honest with ourselves, we see during our day, sometimes we're with Krishna, sometimes we're Krishna conscious, and there are other times during the day we're in Maya, if we want to be honest with ourselves. It's not like 24 hours a day we're fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, 24 hours a day we're fully thinking of Krishna's pleasure. No, sometimes we're engaging in Krishna consciousness, sometimes we're hearing Bhagavatam, reading Bhagavatam, discussing Krishna Katha. But then other times during the day we deviate a bit, our mind wanders to other things other than Krishna consciousness. We talk a bit of Prajalpa, we might hear a bit of Prajalpa, and we engage a bit in sense gratification. So even though we've heard so many times the downfall of sense gratification, we've heard so many times the importance of always remembering Krishna, never forgetting Krishna, theoretically we understand all this, but we don't have the full realization of this. If we actually did, then we would all be pure devotees, we would all just be 100% engaged in devotional service, engaged in Krishna consciousness. But if we're honest with ourselves, we see that our mind is wandering. Classical example is that of japa, like we're discussing during Balaram Jayanti, that we've heard so much, hundreds and thousands of times, the glories of the holy name, the power of the holy name. And we've heard so many stories and narrations describing the potency of the holy name, like the story of Ajamil. And we have also heard so many times about the bad effects that one has to face if he offends the holy name by chanting inattentively. So every day in the morning we chant the 10 offenses against the holy name, and we recite every day that it's also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. And every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these offenses. And we've heard from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur how he explains that all the other 10 offenses, they all sprout or they all take root from this one offense of inattentive chanting. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that inattentive chanting is the root cause of all the other offenses. So if we're chanting our rounds inattentively, then as a result of that, as a byproduct of that, we'll end up committing some of the other offenses, like not following the instruction of the spiritual master, thinking the glories of the holy name to be exaggeration or imagination, preaching to the faithless. So in this way, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he explains that inattentive chanting is the root cause of all the other offenses, and if we simply chant our rounds, if we simply chant Hare Krishna early in the morning with full attention, then as a byproduct of that, we'll naturally stay away from all the other 10 offenses and our chanting will be pure. So we've heard this many times, and we've also heard from Chaitanya Charitamrita how Mahaprabhu is explaining that, okay, by the mercy of Guru and Krishna, Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagavan Jeev, Guru Krishna Prasade Pai, Bhakti Lata Pij. By the mercy of Guru, by the mercy of Krishna, we get the seed of bhakti. And by chanting and hearing about Krishna, we're pouring water onto the seed of bhakti, and the creeper of devotional service slowly starts growing, and we start advancing in devotional service. But Mahaprabhu, he explains that as the creeper grows in devotional service, what happens? Some weeds, they start to grow along with the creeper. And Mahaprabhu explains that these weeds, which grow along with the creeper of devotional service, along with the creeper of bhakti, they look very similar to the bhakti tree, or they look very similar to the bhakti creeper. And the practitioner of bhakti, he thinks that the weeds is part of the bhakti tree, which means he can't realize, or he doesn't have the vision to see that this is actually a weed, this isn't part of bhakti, this isn't part of my devotional service. So that's why Mahaprabhu explains that one needs the guidance of the spiritual master, because the spiritual master, he's the expert gardener, and because he's the expert gardener, he can, when he sees weeds coming up in our hearts, when he sees different anarthas coming up in our hearts, the spiritual master, he can immediately notice that, and he can immediately point those weeds or point those anarthas or those bad qualities in our hearts and help us cut those weeds. And Prabhupada, he explains, or in his purports, and Mahaprabhu, he also explains, that these weeds in the heart, these anarthas, these bad qualities, material desires which are present in our hearts, they grow when we inattentively chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So this is again explained by Prabhupada and Acharyas, and we've heard this also many times, that if we chant inattentively, then instead of pouring water and helping the creeper of devotional service grow stronger and stronger and higher, instead what happens if we chant inattentively? If we chant inattentively, the water of our chanting, instead of going and nourishing the bhakti creeper, the water will go and instead nourish the weeds which are present along with the bhakti creeper. So Prabhupada explains, the Acharyas explain, that when we chant inattentively, instead of us progressing further in bhakti, instead of our bhakti creeper growing stronger and stronger, instead what happens? The anarthas we have in our heart, they become stronger. The material desires we have in our heart, they become stronger. So in this way, it's a very scary situation, which we have heard many times, the downfall of inattentive chanting. How by inattentively chanting, we're stopping our spiritual progress. The material desires in our heart will become stronger by inattentive chanting. And due to inattentive chanting, we'll end up committing the other 10 offenses against the holy name. So we've all heard this so many times, and we've also heard positively the wonderful glories of the holy name. We've heard about how the holy name is so potent that even if chanted in a joking mood, or even by someone who doesn't understand full glories, if you just simply chant offenselessly in a humble mood, then one will be delivered. And once chanted inoffensively, the holy name is so powerful that the holy name can completely eradicate all the sins one has committed in the past and all the sins one will commit in the future. So in this way, there's so many wonderful glories of the holy name we've all heard many times. But still, despite hearing all this tattva, despite hearing all this philosophy about the importance of chanting, the glories of the holy name, the downfall of inattentive chanting, Prabhupada in one place, he also says that 90% of our spiritual advancement is based on our japa, is based on our chanting, on japa beads. So again, we've heard this many times, and when we hear this, then we think, oh, okay, 90% of my advancement is based on my japa, okay, then I have to chant attentively. But despite hearing so much, still what happens? When we come and we sit down to chant our rounds attentively in the morning, first round maybe we chant nicely, second round we chant nicely, but then after that what happens? Our mind wanders here and there, and that's it. For our rest of our rounds, our mind is going here and there, and we're unable to chant attentively. So this is why Prabhupada is explaining today, Vidura is explaining, and Prabhupada is further elaborating in today's purport, that theoretical knowledge and realization are completely two different things. One might have theoretical knowledge, but one might not have the practical deep realization by which he can act and conduct himself and behave accordingly to that theoretical knowledge he has. Just like with the case of chanting a japa, we all have theoretical knowledge about the importance of chanting attentive rounds. We all have theoretical knowledge about the glories of the holy name. We all have theoretical knowledge about the downfall of inattentive chanting. But still, despite having all this theoretical knowledge, when it comes to practically chanting our rounds in the morning, our mind wanders here and there, and we are unable to chant our rounds attentively. Why? Because although we have this theoretical knowledge, we don't have that full practical realization that, yes, Krishna is non-different from the holy name. Yes, that when I'm chanting Hare Krishna, Shri Shri Radha Krishna are personally there, present with me. Krishna's name and Krishna's form, there is no difference. Whenever we chant Hare Krishna, Radha Gopinath, they're personally present there with us. In one letter, Prabhupada writes that whenever we chant Hare Krishna, we are seeing Shri Shri Radha Krishna face to face, eye to eye. Prabhupada writes this in one letter, that whenever we're chanting Hare Krishna, we are personally seeing Radha Krishna face to face, eye to eye. And in Bhagavad Gita, in one purport, Prabhupada also explains that whenever we're chanting Hare Krishna, Shri Shri Radha Gopinath are personally dancing on the tip of our tongue. So like this, we know so much, but still we're unable to get this realization that Krishna is non-different from his name. We're unable to get this deep realization, and we're unable to chant nicely. We're unable to chant consistently day in, day out, nice attentive rounds. Why? Because we lack this deep realization, which senior advanced devotees have. Advanced devotees, pure devotees of the Lord, they have this full realization. Not just theoretical knowledge, but they have the practical realization that yes, Krishna is non-different from his holy name. That's why when pure devotees, when they sit to chant their rounds, they fully hear each and every syllable of the Maha Mantra. Prabhupada explains in Nectar of Instruction, he says, quoting Srila Rupa Goswami, that when we chant our japa, we should chant very carefully with full attention. Just like if someone gives us something very valuable, like a very valuable, delicate diamond, then understanding the value of the diamond, that this diamond is worth thousands and thousands of dollars, and understanding that, this diamond is very fragile, if I drop it, it might break, or some scratch might happen. So we will naturally, very carefully, take care of the diamond, and preserve it very carefully, understanding the value and the importance. So in the same way, Prabhupada explains that we need to understand the importance of the holy name, and if we fully understand and realize the actual value of the holy name, the potency of the holy name, then we should chant carefully. Just like one would carefully hold a diamond, understanding its value, in the same way, when we chant our rounds, we should very carefully chant and hear each and every syllable. Prabhupada writes in Chaitanya Charitamrita that when we chant Hare Krishna, when we chant a japa, the only thing we should be focusing on is the sound. Prabhupada says, with our mouth, with our tongue, we should pronounce each and every syllable of the Maha Mantra very clearly and distinctly. So with our tongue, what's the job of the tongue? With our tongue, we should focus that we should chant every syllable of the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So with our tongue, we should focus, let me pronounce every single syllable of the Maha Mantra very clearly and distinctly. Then number 2, Prabhupada explains, with our ears, we should simply hear each and every syllable. And Prabhupada, he explains that when we're chanting the mantra out loud, our upper and lower lip should be moving. So sometimes devotees, and Prabhupada used to tease devotees about this, instead of moving their upper and lower lips, they would just make a hissing sound and just murmur, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, and they won't distinctly and clearly chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So Prabhupada, he writes in Chaitanya Charitamrita that one's upper lip and lower lip should be moving when he's chanting, and one should chant loud enough to hear oneself, and one should chant every single syllable of the Maha Mantra clearly and distinctly. And with his ears, one should focus on hearing the Maha Mantra. So like this, we have so much knowledge about the holy name, but we lack this realization, which pure devotees have, and that's why when pure devotees they chant, every single syllable of every single mantra they chant, of every single round they chant with full attention. And this way they don't commit any offenses, and this way their chanting is fully pure. So how can we also become like that? How can we also get this practical realization that yes, Krishna is non-different from the holy name, and how can we, having this practical deep realization, also chant our rounds attentively, and also do other aspects of devotional service with that practical realization. That, Vidura is saying, we can attain by serving the feet of our spiritual masters, by serving the feet of great devotees of the Lord. So this is the secret, this is the key to getting practical realization. On one hand we have theoretical knowledge, on the other hand we have practical wisdom, practical realization. To go from theoretical knowledge to get practical realization, Vidura is explaining, one needs to serve the spiritual masters. One needs to serve the advanced devotees. By serving the advanced devotees of the Lord, one can get this practical realization of devotional service. And that's what Prabhupada is explaining. Yet, although this statement is theoretically very true, it is very difficult. So Prabhupada is writing, it's very difficult to get this practical realization for the common man or the neophyte on the transcendental path to realize practically. However, now Prabhupada is giving the secret, how we can get this practical realization of Krishna consciousness by which we can conduct ourselves like pure devotees. We can conduct ourselves 24 hours a day favorably in Krishna consciousness. However, Prabhupada is writing, by serving the feet of great transcendentalists like Maitreya Muni and by constantly associating with them, one is enabled to give up the false idea that the soul suffers from material pangs. So yes, it's very difficult to give up the bodily concept of life. It's very difficult to give up the false ego. It's given that the false ego is the glue which is binding the soul to this material world. And no doubt it's extremely difficult to give up. As Vidura is saying, as Prabhupada is further emphasizing the purport. But Prabhupada is saying, Vidura is saying, by constantly associating with pure devotees of the Lord, with our spiritual masters, and by rendering service to their lotus feet, we will be blessed with this realization that I'm not this body, I'm the soul. We'll get this practical, full-on deep realization that yes, I'm Krishna's servant, and we can overcome the false ego in our heart. By serving the feet of our spiritual masters, getting the blessings, we'll also get the realization that yes, the holy name is non-different from Krishna. And then when we chant our rounds, we will chant our rounds attentively. By serving the lotus feet of our spiritual masters, by getting their blessings, by constantly associating with them, we will practically realize, we won't just have theoretical wisdom, we'll also get practical realization of the importance of constantly being engaged in Krishna's service. And we won't phase out so much during the day. We won't be half in Maya, half in Krishna, but we will fully 100% be sheltered at Krishna's lotus feet by getting realization from serving the feet of great devotees. So in this way, this is the main lesson from today's verse and today's purport, that first we have theoretical knowledge, then after theoretical knowledge comes practical realization, by which one acts according to that theoretical knowledge. But to come to the stage, or to progress from theoretical knowledge to go to practical realization and practical application in spiritual life, one cannot do this on one's own endeavor. So by our own endeavor, we can't just hear again and again and just read again and again. We can't mechanically get this deep realization. We can't mechanically attain this practical realization on our own endeavors. To get this practical realization, one needs to be blessed. One needs to, it's not something that one can acquire, it's something that one has to be gifted with. Gifted by who? Gifted by Krishna. So this theme comes up again and again in the Bhagavatam, how we're not in control of our perception. Our perception of things around us, our realization, our practical realization of different things around us in life is not under our control. Then whose control is it under? It's under the control of our Paramatma. Based on the Paramatmas, as we hear in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains, Sarvasya chaham hridisani visto matta smritit jnanam apohanam cha vedescha sarve aham eva veja vedanta krit veda videva chaham. So Krishna, he explains in the Bhagavad Gita that Sarvasya chaham hridisani vista, that I am situated as Paramatma, as the super soul, in the hearts of all living entities. And matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha, from me as Paramatma within comes matta smritir, from me comes memory, from me comes knowledge, intelligence, and from me also comes forgetfulness. So if the super soul wants us to forget that we're Krishna's servants and that we are this, and if he wants us to remember we're the body, then that's what we'll think. If the super soul sees that we're sincere and that we want to sincerely engage in His service, then the Super Soul will help us forget our material desires for sense gratification, and the Super Soul will create remembrance of His pastime and His glories. And in this way, the Super Soul will assist us in progressing towards His lotus feet. So our perception, our thoughts, desires, these are all our realizations in life, these are all under the control of the Super Soul. Forgetfulness comes from the Super Soul, and remembrance also comes from the Super Soul. So when the Super Soul he sees, when the Super Soul is pleased with a bhakta, that this bhakta is very sincere, he is going around serving the great devotees of the Lord, and he very sincerely wants to engage in my devotional service, then the Super Soul being pleased within the heart will help us, using his forgetfulness potency, the Super Soul will help us forget all of the material desires we have in our heart for engaging in sense gratification. And using his remembrance potency, the Super Soul will help us remember him during the day. The Super Soul will help us put forward different spiritual thoughts into our mind and help us further remember his glories. So in this way, we learn from the Bhagavad Gita that actually our perception of different things around us is not under our control. Our realization of different things in life is also not under control. It's under the control of Krishna. It's under the control of the Super Soul. So then what can we do to make the Super Soul give us this realization or give us the perception of his glories, of his beautiful transcendental form, of the glories of his name and pastimes, by which we can always be engaged in devotional service? That we're hearing is by serving the devotees. Krishna's most dear object of love is his devotees, as we hear from 9th canto, March, to Krishna or Vishnu. He says to Durvasa Muni, Sadhava Hridayamayam, Sadhava Hridayamayam, Sadhunam Hridayam Taham, Mat Anyatena Janati, Naham Tebhyo Managapi. So Lord Vishnu, he is saying to Durvasa Muni, that Sadhava Hridayamayam, that my pure devotees, they're always situated in my heart. I always think of them in my heart, and not only that, but I am also situated in the hearts of my devotees. I don't know anyone else apart from my devotees, and my devotees also don't know anyone apart from me. And Vishnu, he also tells Durvasa Muni that Aham Bhakta Paradino Hiyasvatantra Ivaduja Sadhunam Grasta Hridayos Bhaktes Bhakta Janapriya. So again, Vishnu is telling to Durvasa Muni that Aham Bhakta Paradino, that I am completely under the control of my pure devotees. I am not at all independent. So although we hear from the first verse of Bhagavatam that Krishna is Swarat, Krishna is fully independent, but here in this instance Vishnu is telling Durvasa Muni that although the Shastras declare, although the Vedas declare that I am independent, actually Durvasa Muni, to tell you the truth, I am not independent. I am actually fully under the control of my devotees. I am fully dependent on the will of my devotees. So Krishna, he is completely sold out by his pure devotees. In his heart, he is always thinking about his devotees, and he is completely controlled by his devotees. Just like we see in Vraja Leela, how Mother Yasoda, she bound up Krishna. Who is Krishna? Krishna is Supreme Personal Godhead. But here is Krishna, he is being bound up by a rope by Mother Yasoda, by Mother Yasoda's love. We also see in Krishna book how it's given that the elderly gopis, they used to tell Krishna that, Krishna, you please dance for us, you please sing for us. And in this way, the residents of Vrindavan, the elderly gopis, they would take great pleasure in seeing little baby Krishna sing and dance in front of them. And in Bhagavatam, it's explained, in Krishna books explained, that Krishna, he used to dance just like a puppet. Krishna is the Supreme Personality Godhead, but Bhagavatam explains, although he's the Supreme Personality Godhead, he's dancing just like a puppet in the hand of these elderly gopis. So these elderly gopis, they would bribe Krishna, that Krishna, if you dance for us nicely in the next 10 minutes, and you sing nicely for us, then we'll give you one sandesh. And if you dance even more, we'll give you one burfi. So like this, they used to bribe Krishna with different milk sweets. So Krishna, he loves cows, and he loves different milk sweets, which is prepared from his very beloved cows. That's why every day we offer so many wonderful milk sweets to our Shri Shri Radha Gopinath, rasgulla, sandesh, burfi, dugda, sweet rice, if you see all the sweets we're offering, they're all made out of milk. So Krishna, he loves milk sweets. So in this way, the elderly gopis, they used to bribe Krishna. So although in Gita we see that we have the three modes of material nature, and if you open up the Gita, there's the famous picture of the changing bodies, and right after the changing bodies picture, on the next page, is the picture of the three modes of material nature. And the artist in the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, to display how the three modes of material nature, how they're controlling every single living entity in this material world, they've drawn three Matajis, and all these Matajis, they have these strings like a puppeteer. And using these strings, in that painting is depicted, the three Matajis, they represent the three modes of material nature. Rajagun, Sattvagun, and Tamagun, the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. So we see how these three Matajis, the three modes of material nature, if we look at that picture, they have these strings coming down through their fingers, and using those strings, they're playing around with everyone in this material world just like puppets. So this is the situation of everyone in this material world. Everyone in this material world, they're just like puppets in the hands of Durga Devi. They're just like puppets in the hands of Maya Devi, in the hands of the three modes of material nature. And who is Durga Devi? Durga Devi is the servant of Krishna. So Krishna, he is the master of Durga Devi, who is playing around with all the jivas just like puppets. But that same Krishna who is master of Durga Devi, that same Krishna is dancing just like a puppet in the hands of the elderly gopis. So in this way we see in Krishna Leela how Krishna, although he is independent, he voluntarily comes under the control of his pure devotees. Being completely overcome by the love, Krishna, he becomes completely controlled by the love of his devotees, and he becomes dependent upon his devotees. Why? Krishna, again, he explains to Durvasa Muni that in one verse he says, Ye daragra sutta apta, ye daragra sutta apta, pranan vitam imam param, that my pure devotees, they give up for my sake. Krishna explains to Durvasa Muni, for my sake, my pure devotees, they give up their family, they give up their wife, they give up their children, they give up all attachments to all enjoyments in this material world. They give up the desire to go to the heavenly planets, they give up the desire for liberation, they give up the attachment to one's own body, which is so difficult to give up, and they give their very lives to my devotional service. For such a soul, for such a person who's completely surrendered everything, who's completely given up all attachments and is fully, solely engaged in my devotional service, how can I let him go? How can I not be controlled by his love? So in this way, Krishna, Lord Vishnu, he explains to Durvasa Muni how he comes completely under the control of his devotees. So in this way we see how important devotees are to Krishna. Devotees, they are the life and soul of Krishna, as Krishna himself is explaining, that Krishna's pure devotees are constantly within his heart, and when any harm or pain is caused to Krishna's devotees, Krishna also feels harm. And the converse is also true. When Krishna sees that someone is serving his pure devotees, and his pure devotees are getting pleasure, then Krishna, he also becomes pleased by that person who is serving his pure devotees. So that is the reason why it's explained in today's verse and purport, that if we want to progress from theoretical knowledge to the next platform of practical realization, why we need to serve the pure devotees of Lord. Because in this world there is nothing more dear to Krishna than his devotees. Therefore, if we render humble service to Krishna's devotees, if we attract their pleasure, if we attract their blessings, then the super soul within our heart who is watching all this, the super soul is seeing us humbly going out of our way and serving his devotees and humbly rendering different services and assisting different devotees in their spiritual lives, then the super soul notices us that, this devotee or this bhakta, this soul, he is going and rendering such nice service to my pure devotees. Let me bless him with more realization of my glories. Let me open the doors to spiritualization by which he can get more access to spiritual wisdom. So in this way, we get the blessings. By getting the blessings of Krishna's devotees, we get the blessings of the super soul. And the blessings of the super soul means that instead of just having theoretical knowledge, we'll get the practical realization that yes, Krishna is non-different from the holy name, and these material desires within our heart will go away, and our love and attraction for Sri Sri Radha Gopinath, love and attraction for Srimad Bhagavatam, for the holy name, for Krishna's pastime will grow more and more. And this way we'll get more and more realization. This way we'll advance more and more in spiritual life. So it all starts, as Vidura is saying, as Prabhupada is explaining, it all starts by constantly associating with great devotees of Lord and rendering service to them. By serving them, by pleasing them, the super soul within the heart, so he notices this. Then the super soul also becomes pleased. Yasya prasada, bhagavad prasado. Then the super soul being pleased, he will help us develop more and more realization about his glories. And this way, we will nicely progress in our spiritual lives. Now, in terms of rendering service, okay, we understand, or we've understood this point, that engaging in practical service is very important. Just simply reading books or just simply hearing lectures isn't enough. On top of reading and hearing and gaining this knowledge, we have to engage in practical service. In the ashram, in the temple, in our devotional community, we need to engage in practical service. And by engaging in practical service, the super soul being pleased with the hearts will give us more realization. So we understand this point. And this point again, there's one story that comes to mind of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, which we've heard many times. That one time one devotee, he comes to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and his request to see Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, saying that I have some questions for Maharaj. Can I please get an interview with Maharaj? And then Maharaj, through his servants, tells this devotee that at this moment I'm preoccupied with some work. Ask him to go to the kitchen and wash the pots. And after some time I'll come and answer his questions. So then this devotee, he goes to the kitchen and he starts washing all the pots. He goes there and he washes for an hour or two. Then he comes out. And then Maharaj asks him, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, he asks, okay, so what's your questions? What doubts do you have? And what does this devotee reply? This devotee tells Maharaj that actually, Maharaj, that whatever doubts I had, whatever questions I had, all automatically got answered. While I was engaged in washing the pots, all my questions, all my doubts naturally got answered. Krishna from within my heart, he gave me realization and I understood. I don't have any more questions. So this story is given to again highlight this point about the importance of engaging in practical service. So it's nice to do our daily sadhana, to read the books, to hear lectures, but on top of that, we need to be engaged in practical service also. By engaging in practical service, what happens? All the knowledge that we're reading in the books, all the knowledge we're hearing from the lectures, they will transform to practical realization. And they will go very much deep within the heart, and then we'll be, by the strength of that deep realization, we'll start acting on that knowledge and we'll advance further in spiritual life. So again, this is another story highlighting the importance of practical devotional service on top of our daily sadhana. That's why it's important that, so that's for us, for ourselves, we need to make sure that along with our sadhana, we are engaging in practical service. And also, on another angle, we should also make sure that other devotees who are under us, new bhaktas, bhaktins we're cultivating, new devotees we're helping advance in devotional service, we need to make sure, we need to facilitate that along with giving them classes from Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, along with giving them lectures, and along with inspiring them to study the Shastras and hear the Shastras, we should also facilitate the new bhaktas in our movement. We should also give them opportunity to also engage in practical devotional service. So that is also our responsibility. Just like it's our responsibility to help them read Bhagavad Gita, helps them understand the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, and so on and so forth. It is also our responsibility, it's also our duty to facilitate the new bhaktas in a movement in engaging in practical devotional service. So along with giving weekly classes from Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, we should make sure that we have arranged or we've made some facility for the new bhaktas to engage in some practical service. That could be coming to a temple once a week to clean, or coming to a temple once a week to engage in cooking, or doing book distribution, doing prasadam distribution, anything. So understanding the importance of this, that we need to engage in practical service to get practical realization, to attract the mercy of the Lord. We ourselves should be engaged in practical service, and we ourselves should inspire those under us, and we should make the facility for those under us those devotees we're guiding, we should make the facility for them to also engage in practical service. Because when they engage in practical service, all that philosophy they're learning from the books, it will transform to realization, it will go deep within the heart, and this way they'll advance more and more. Now, one other thing, when it comes to engaging in service, one problem that comes up in engaging in service is that there are so many services, and which service to do? At this moment, I can do the service of preaching, or I can do the service of cleaning, or I can do the service of cooking, or like this. There's so many different things we can do at a particular point in time. We can either chant, we can read, we can do this service, that service, that service. So sometimes in life, it's not fully clear that which service we should prioritize, which service we should do first. Therefore, guidance is required. We need the guidance of senior devotees to tell us which service would be more pleasing for Radha Gopinath at this time, place and circumstance. So that's why we should always be, yes, it's important to engage in practical service, but that practical service should be done under the guidance of our spiritual masters, our spiritual authorities, under the guidance of senior devotees, who can help us understand at a certain time and place and circumstance which service will be more pleasing for Radha Gopinath, which service takes higher priority. There's one Prabhupada Leela I was reading in relation to this yesterday. So one time, this is a memory shared by His Holiness Gururaj Maharaj. One time His Holiness Guru Maharaj, he was, as we all know, Gururaj Maharaj was serving in India, and he was especially involved with the Juhu project. And Maharaj has released the book of the whole story of Juhu, how after so much struggles and austerities, they were able to acquire the Juhu property and the temple, and build a wonderful temple for Shri Shri Radha Rasa Bihari. So and if we read the story of Gururaj Maharaj, we'll understand that how much troubles, anxieties and hardships Gururaj Maharaj and the other devotees they had to go through. So things were getting very tough for Maharaj and the other devotees. So Gururaj Maharaj, he was thinking to himself that, I need a break, maybe I should leave India and go back to the West. And in the West, I think it would be better if I go to the West and engage in preaching, book distribution, and outreach in the West. Staying here in India and managing all this politics, this whole management of, it's getting too much for me. I think it's better I go to the West. I think it's better I go back to America and preach there. And he was talking amongst his senior godbrothers like Tamal Krishna Maharaj and other sannyasis about leaving India and going to the West. So then one day he approaches Srila Prabhupada and he tells Prabhupada that, Srila Prabhupada, I've been here in India for so long, and now I think that I've been discussing with my senior godbrothers, and I've been thinking in consolidation with my godbrothers that I think it's maybe a good idea that I go to the West and engage in preaching. For so long I've been here in India. I think it's better I go to America and engage in preaching there in America. For so long I've been here in India. Maybe it's better I go to America. So in this way, Gururaj Maharaj, he puts forward this proposal to Krishna. And Prabhupada's response is very instructive for all of us. How does Prabhupada respond? Prabhupada tells His Holiness Gururaj Maharaj that sometimes we will be massaging Krishna. Sometimes Krishna's body will be aching and we'll be engaged in massaging his legs. And Prabhupada says that we'll be massaging Krishna's left leg. So we'll be massaging nicely, giving pleasure to Krishna by massaging his left leg. Then after some time, we think, okay, I've massaged Krishna's left leg enough. Now let me go to Krishna's right leg and let me massage Krishna's right leg. So then we give up the left leg and then we come to Krishna's right leg and then we start massaging Krishna's right leg. But Prabhupada explains, Krishna, he is getting more pain in his left leg, and Krishna wants us to massage his left leg more because his left leg is aching more. So then what should we do? We should give up the right leg and go back to the left leg and again continue massaging Krishna's left leg. Why? Because Krishna wants us to massage his left leg more than his right leg. Although according to our conception we think, I've already massaged the left leg, let me do the right leg. But what's Krishna thinking? Krishna's desire is that his left leg is aching more, so he wants us to massage his left leg more. So in this case, if one was an ideal servant, what should he do? He should immediately give up the right leg, and he should immediately understand, okay, my Lord's left leg is paining more. My Lord wants me to focus only on the left leg at this time and place. So then we should just focus on massaging the left leg. So like this, Prabhupada, he narrates this little example, this little story about massaging Krishna's legs. Then Giriraj Maharaj, he gets the point. And then Giriraj Maharaj, he asks Prabhupada, so Prabhupada, do you think it's better that this time and place that my service is needed more in India? And Prabhupada says, yes, that at this time, place and circumstance, the most important service at this time and place is in India. This project of India, your service here in India is most needed at this time and place. Your service here is, your service that you can render in India is more valuable than anywhere else. Therefore, you should stay in India. So like this, Prabhupada, through this nice story, he helps us understand that, yes, there's many services we can do, but to understand which service at a particular time and place is more important, which service we should give more priority to, for that we need guidance from the spiritual master, we need guidance from the guru and from senior devotees. And in those instances, instead of going with our whims, just like we can go with our whims and just massage Krishna's right leg. Even though Krishna is feeling more pain in his left leg, if we just go with our own mental concoction, if we just go with our own mindset and think, I've already spent 20 minutes massaging the left leg, why should I massage the left leg more? I should just go for another body part of Krishna. Let me massage the right leg or the right arm. But no, if we understand the mood of Krishna, understand that actually he's feeling pain, he's getting some body ache on the left side, then understanding Krishna's mood, understanding Krishna's pleasure, we'll understand, okay, today the priority is the left leg, let me massage Krishna's left leg. So in the same way, by taking guidance from senior devotees, we can understand that at a certain time, place and circumstance, which service is more important, which service we should prioritize, which service we should focus on. Otherwise, there's so many services we can do, and sometimes it can be confusing, and sometimes we might misprioritize our services in life. Now the next question comes up that sometimes in our spiritual lives, we don't have the physical guidance of senior devotees around us by which we can ask them that, Prabhu, what service is most needed now, what service I can do this service, that service, this service, which service do you think is most important? Sometimes we don't have that physical guidance of other senior devotees. So then, for those instances, Prabhupada explains, Tesam satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddha yogam tam yenamam upayantite. For those instances, Krishna explains that he is within our hearts, and Krishna is explaining, Tesam satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. For those devotees who are day in, day out, engaging in my service with priti, with love and devotion, for those devotees, I within the heart give them knowledge by which they can come to me. So Krishna is there externally as our spiritual masters, and Krishna is also there within our heart as the Chaitya Guru. So in those instances when we don't have that guidance of other devotees, we can take guidance from within. If we're very sincere in our spiritual life, very sincerely serving Radha Gopinath, sincerely engaging in their service day in, day out, then Krishna will give us intelligence from within the heart. And Prabhupada is also, if we go to Krishna Leela, in the Damodar Leela where Mother Yasoda, she's feeding Krishna her breast milk, and then while Mother Yasoda is feeding Krishna, she notices that on the stove the milk is boiling over. And then when she sees that, she immediately puts Krishna down and she immediately goes rushing to stop the milk from boiling over. And Prabhupada explains that, I think it's either Prabhupada or I was hearing in one lecture of my Guru Maharaj, how they're explaining that in this pastime we see the importance of prioritizing again in Krishna's service. So there's two services Mother Yasoda can do. She's feeding Krishna her breast milk, so that's one particular service to Krishna. On the other hand, she's boiling the milk to churn butter or to make different sweets for Krishna's pleasure. So now what should she do? The milk is boiling over there, and at the same time she is feeding Krishna breast milk. But Mother Yasoda, she understands that this time and place, the stopping the milk from boiling over, stopping the milk which is meant for the pleasure of my Krishna boiling over, is more important. So she puts Krishna down, goes quickly to turn the heat down, and then she thinks, okay, I'll quickly turn the heat down and then I'll come and feed Krishna again. So in this way, this is one instance where a devotee, she's prioritizing different services in spiritual life. So to get this understanding of this wisdom of how we should prioritize different services during the day, we take guidance from our mentors, from our senior devotees. And certain instances where we don't have that physical guidance available, if we are very sincere in our bhakti, Krishna within our heart, He will give that knowledge, He will give that realization of how we should practically engage in His service. Okay, well this, I'll stop here. So we discussed how in today's verse and purport, it's being explained how, yes, we all have theoretical knowledge or wisdom of the tattva of Krishna consciousness, the tattva of the Supreme Personal Godhead, tattva of the Holy Name, devotional service, but because we lack practical realization, we are unable to fully apply ourselves based on that theoretical knowledge. So it's one thing to have theoretical knowledge, and another thing to get the practical deep realization. And to get that practical realization, we read today in today's verse and purport that we need to serve the great devotees of the Lord. By serving them, we get their blessings. By serving them, we please the Super Soul within the heart, and then the Super Soul within the heart, He reveals the deepest secrets of Krishna consciousness to us, and by that, we'll get more practical, deeper realizations in Krishna consciousness and we'll further advance. Then finally we discussed about when it comes to engaging in practical service, sometimes there'll be many services and we don't know which service to prioritize over others. So then that's when the importance of guidance comes. We need to take guidance from the spiritual master and the senior devotees that at this time and place, which service takes higher priority, which service will give more pleasure to Krishna. And we should give up our attachments in those instances, even though we might like to cook, even though our regular service is that of just coming to the kitchen and cooking. Still at a particular time, it could be the day before Janmashtami and not much cleaning is done. At this particular time and place, the cleaning of the temple is more important than cooking in the kitchen. There's already 20, 30 devotees cooking in the kitchen. Not many devotees are cleaning. So in this time and place circumstance, our service as cleaning is required more. Even though we like, or we might have personal preferences for cooking in the kitchen, and cleaning is not something that we like, still, because we understand that at this time and place, this service of cleaning will give Krishna more pleasure, is more priority at this time and place, we give up whatever little attachments we have, and we engage in that service. And Krishna, seeing that within our heart, he'll notice that, he'll take note that this devotee, although he likes to cook, still for my pleasure, understanding that cleaning service is required more, he's given up his attachment and just simply for my pleasure, he's engaging in a service which he would ordinarily not do. Krishna, noticing that of us going out of our way to act for his pleasure, he will give us more blessings, he will give us more realization to help us advance in our spiritual lives. Okay, we'll stop here. Gantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jaguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, and Tagore Pramanande, Hari Hari Bol.